Hello and welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. This is a review of Django Unchained, which is the latest Tarantino film. It's apparently Tarantino's take on slavery, and it's a real wonder that Pam Grier isn't in there, but Samuel L. Jackson predictably pops up, but actually as a sort of strange, leering, sort of caricatural character really later in the film. So Tarantino, well, I really liked his first three films, so we're talking Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and then Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown didn't do terribly well at the box office. However, it was the only one that really actually showed character development in any of Tarantino's films. So he's well known for slick dialogue, cool characters, and a lot of good music, good good tunes in his films. Unfortunately, Tarantino has fallen into the trap of making superficial and rather baggy films, and I think he is guilty of making films for himself and not necessarily for the audience. So we kick off. I mean, the film starts with lots of knowing winks to genre films and exploitation films from the 1970s. I imagine that they're the films that Tarantino grew up with as a child and has very fond memories of them. I'm really surprised he hasn't got tired yet of sort of playing with his toys in that way. This film clocks in just shy of 3 hours rather. I think it's about 2 hours 50 minutes. So he's put a tremendous cast together. Again, he's working with Christoph Waltz, who is in Inglourious Bastards, and in my mind he was the best thing in that. He's got Jamie Foxx in there. His career's gone a bit off the boil in the last couple of years, but he's very strong in this. So those two characters, one black guy, one white guy, they are hunting down three brothers who are the bad guys, and they're going to do away with them. It's a very simple revenge setup, and along the way, as you might expect, they shoot a lot of people. The people they kill tend to be in the middle of doing something really, really evil, so the audience is in absolutely no doubt that these are bad guy caricatures that really do need to be killed. The protagonists are on the side of the angels, and it's so the setup we really have is a white guy and a black guy with a relatively contemporary view of the world, which they wouldn't have had at the time necessarily, but for the purpose of this film, they're travelling sort of into the belly of the beast. So it's almost a sort of Joseph Conrad Heart of Darkness thing going on here, but with southern slavery, which is quite interesting. The whole thing kicks off with its exploitation roots right up there on the screen. So we've got the music, the cinematography, just the font of the characters, the style. It's precisely what you'd expect, really. The two most obvious points that the film draws up, and the two most potentially controversial things, are the racial politics and the violence of the film. I think actually Tarantino has left himself open to criticism there. I think his intentions are actually perfectly fine with both. However, I think he's been quite naive. The use of the N-word is pretty prevalent throughout, and it's used in lots of different contexts, and I'm not sure he gets away with that. I don't know. I think he means perfectly well, but to me, I don't like that. The film is very violent. I mean, it is supposed to be a nasty, grimy revenge film. Lots of people get shot more than once and sort of repeatedly. You could probably argue there's an element of sadism there. However, to me, it's just Tarantino likes the look of it. He likes the style. And I don't think there's really anything malicious there. So it's what you'd expect, really. It's a western, it's a revenge flick. There's little or no character development. At times it's very frustrating. It does not need to be this long. It doesn't need to be 3 hours. Most of the characters are sort of leering caricatures. You get characters called things like Big Daddy. There's, the symbolism is on the level of a slave driver being whipped in front of his own slaves by a black guy with his own whip. That's sort of the level of sophistication we get in that regard, and that gets a little bit frustrated. We don't really learn anything from the film. It's not really trying to teach us anything. It's trying to be cool. It's trying to be enjoyable, and at times it is enjoyable, and sometimes you laugh, and sometimes you go along with it. However, it's just unnecessarily baggy. The film actually ends after about 2 hours and 10 minutes, and then inexplicably it just carries on going, and I don't understand that at all. We spend a lot of time in the company of Leonardo DiCaprio's Candy, who is a sort of horrible character. Although he played very well, Leonardo DiCaprio, as always, does a really, really good job, and he's probably one of the most interesting things in this. but unfortunately he can't save this from being an average film. Like in Inglourious Bastards, it's just too baggy. There's just too much self-indulgence going on. I think all the acting is very, very strong. But what we really need is Harvey Weinstein standing behind Tarantino in the editing suite and just whacking him around the head or something and insisting, look, it's got to get it down to 90 minutes. It's got to be a 90-minute picture, because if this was 90 minutes, I think it would have made a good film. It just goes on for too long, far too long, outstays its welcome. There is, having said all that, there's good stuff in here, but it's baggy and it's self-indulgent. And if Tarantino doesn't have the self-control or the self-discipline to make a conventional film, then he needs someone in there who will tell him what he needs to do. Because unfortunately, I think everyone is telling him he's absolutely fantastic, and obviously he believes that himself. But, you know, we still have completely superficial characters. There's no tone here. There's nothing of substance. It's just like a stylish comic book, and that's all it is. It's okay, but it's never going to be more than that, as long as these simple things. I mean, I sort of saw glimpses of this idea of the heart of darkness transposed to slavery. I thought that was an excellent idea, but I just don't see any of that. I mean, you could pick holes and say, well, why is Django, you know, an ace gunslinger? Why does Christopher Waltz's character actually help him in the first place? There's loads of stuff like that which I'm just going to set aside. Because I don't mind if it's a revenge flick. You don't mind that kind of thing. Now, I know that Tarantino can do better, but I don't think he is going to again. I can't see how he's going to recover from this. The action sequences here are very stylish, and you really lose all sight of the sort of consequences of people being shot. So you never get a sense of, oh, actually there's any weight or heft to people dying or, you know, being mortally wounded. So, yeah, I mean, it reminded me a lot of that one scene in Scanners, which happened once, and it was quite powerful, you know, spoiler alert, when the guy's head explodes. Here, that sort of happens, that's pretty ten a penny. In the very violent action scenes, someone will get shot and there's a massive fountain of very red blood will go up, then he'll get shot again while he's going, ugh, and then another massive fountain of blood will go up, and it just gets quite boring quite quickly. Now, as I said, there's stuff to like in here, but like Inglourious Bastards, he needs someone to rein him in. Otherwise, I don't think he's ever going to make a good film again. It's just far too self-indulgent. So I'm going to stop repeating myself. That's my review of this film, Django Unchained. Kind regards.